right, what's up? Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Dr. Jeff Moore here, coming at you live from the West Coast, still out in Seattle, 5:30 a.m. over here, getting things rolling. Before we get kicked off officially, thanks so much to ATI for an incredible weekend out here. Thanks to all the faculty. For those who were here, we had a huge faculty team. We had 6 of us here, all over the room, kind of convening, and it's incredible to watch everyone get up there and do different parts lecturing, and then to break out and have that kind of hands-on for lab was a pretty special experience. So thanks to everybody who partook, both from a faculty perspective and from a student perspective. We had a very big room, and everybody was engaged. We had a huge workout out in the parking lot, blocking cars and having a blast. Hey, what's up, Kelsey? Good morning. I know very similar good times were had over in Fenton, Michigan. I saw Kelly and Mitch and Alan getting after it out there. And then I saw Jessica Davis knocking out performing artists over in Pittsburgh. So ICE was out in force this past weekend. And the same will be true for next weekend. So I'll be running the state conference over in South Dakota. So I'll be in Sioux Falls on Friday. And then I know Justin's going to be down in Baton Rouge with our friends at Delta PT, Steve and Kristen. So he'll be down there. I want to say there's a few more spots for that total spine thrust course, maybe 2 or 3. So if you want to jump into that, go ahead and do so. Justin will be down in Baton Rouge, and then I'll be over in South Dakota, and we'll keep on rolling. So a lot of good things happening. Thanks to all the hosts. Thanks to all the engagers. So Q&A Monday. Like I said, I'm Jeff Moore, CEO of ICE, currently lead faculty for lumbar and cervical. And the question that came in twice this week, but once live and then once through social media, was what's the order of operations, right? It's a great question. If we're going to be and not or, right? Meaning that we're not going to be exclusively hands-on. We're not going to be exclusively hands-off. We're going to blend these two things. Which one do you do first? Right. So in a given session, how do you organize the session? What's the order of operations? We would argue that it should switch, right? That during the plan of care, it should switch. So think about early on. Let's start at the beginning. And let's take a patient who is really highly irritable, okay, in quite a bit of pain. So maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 10 pain, right? Someone who comes in really having a hard go. In that patient, we think there's good wisdom to beginning with doing whatever you can do to get down their pain levels, right? Whether that is some needling, whether it's some soft tissue work, some joint mobilization, manipulation, changing that chemical environment, getting some of that neurophysiological effect, doing whatever you can do to get pain levels down, because when pain levels are high, so is muscular inhibition or pain inhibition, right? When pain levels are high, your muscles have a hard time, the muscles that are intimately tied into that area have a hard time functioning at decent capacity, right? When we see pain levels drop down, we see things like multifidus activation increase, or cross-sectional area with prone arm lift, the cross-sectional area of that lumbar multifidus musculature increase. So when pain goes down, muscle activity can go up. So you remove that pain inhibition. So if we're going to have exercise as part of our session, which we almost always do, I would love to have that exercise take place when that muscular activity is amplified. So in those cases where the pain level is high, we tend to go after manual therapy first, right? To try and create a scenario where we can get better muscle activation, where we can get more willingness from the patient to do the muscular activation. It's not fun to move through pain. So if we can take away some of that barrier and increase the willingness and capacity to move, we can probably get more out of that session. And it makes sense to go after hands-on stuff first to us in those scenarios, because many times the things that are most effective to change the person's symptom behavior need to be facilitated by the hands during that very early phase, right? Like there's a million examples of this, but take, for example, cervical retraction, just because that one's quite obvious in the clinic and it's easy to show you here on camera, right? When somebody comes in with a really hot cervical radic, we know that we would love at some point, hey, what's up, Sarah, to begin working into cervical retraction, right? We love working that kind of lower cervical retraction, creating that lower cervical pressure on, pressure off, creating that pump, maybe changing that chemical environment seems to really improve how that nerve root is living and behaving and decrease that referral down the arm. The problem is anybody who's seeing a fair amount of these patients, when someone who's really highly irritable tries to draw back into that lower cervical retraction, it usually gets significantly worse, not better, right? It usually peripheralizes. Pain levels usually go up, particularly if you do it in weight bearing. But with our hands, we can create environments where that becomes a lot more accessible, right? We can do a little bit of traction. We can do active assisted range of motion, so their additional muscle contractions aren't creating additional compression. So we can create an environment where we can help them access lower cervical retraction repetitively without that same dramatic increase in pain, or actually oftentimes create an environment where centralization is possible, whereas by themselves, peripheralization was the reality. So when tissue irritability is really high, our hands can help facilitate an environment where different movements can be accessed that bring the patient forward, not backwards. In those cases, we tend to think that hands-on care in the first part of the session, as far as order of operations, makes the most sense. But a keen eye needs to be kept on patient development, right? So as visits are going on, visit 2, visit 3, visit 4, every time that patient comes in, we're checking in with how good of a job is your home program doing at alleviating your symptoms. Because that's the goal, right? Is to get the patient convinced that while they're still symptomatic, they can use our management strategies as opposed to maybe pharmacological aids or not doing what they want to do. So we ask them every time they come in, how effective have we been at that? Right? So when you're having a hard go, when your neck is killing you, when your arm is hurting, how much has your bike tube traction or how much has your modified retraction been able to assist you in reducing those symptoms? And oftentimes, if they are symptomatic, right, if we begin to get the inclination that they're starting to be able to self-manage, what we want to say is, show me, right? If they come in with 7 out of 10 pain, what we want to say is, show me. Show me, watch you reduce your symptoms, right? And oftentimes they're really proud of themselves. Like, yeah, here's what I've been doing. And I bet I can get my symptoms from a 7 to a 4 right now. And as they begin to get this internal locus of control shifted back towards them, which is always the goal, we facilitate and coach and clap for that, right? We root for that and applaud that. Like, hey, great job, Nancy. Look at that. You came in at a 7 and now you're down to a 3 using your own self-management strategies. You're becoming your best weapon. Now, we can still do a little bit of hands-on early and try to get the 3 down to a 0. And that way, during the formal exercise session, they're still getting the best bang for their buck because pain inhibition is a smaller factor. But as you can imagine, during this transitional phase, one day they're going to come in and they're going to show you they can basically eradicate their own symptoms. And at this point, the switch is beginning to take place, right? And we no longer need, right, to have that manual therapy as upfront because those factors aren't as relevant. It doesn't mean there won't be manual therapy in the session, though. Because now what we're often doing is looking at using our hands to give the impairment cleanup a little bump. Right? So what we'll do is at this point, as symptoms are coming down and they're self-managing, so our role in reducing their pain isn't quite as relevant. Now we'll often let them go ahead and hammer the workout. But if their stretches, their self-mobilizations, their exercise doesn't fully clean up maybe their hip mobility or some things that we want to see from a range perspective, we might facilitate that a bit. Right, so we might now come in when they're nice and warm and do some really deep end range hip mobilization, do some active assisted work to use our hands to help facilitate the cleanup of whatever impairments we're going after. So now we're kind of giving them like a bump at the end to begin on an impairment cleanup. Our hands are no longer quite as relevant for symptom reduction because they're managing that. Okay, that's kind of phase 2, right, where manual therapy might fall in the beginning or the end. Phase 3 is where manual therapy becomes irrelevant, right? Now we're at a point where they're coming in, impairments are largely cleaned up, so really symptom modification is no longer an issue, right? If they do have them at all, they can self-manage, right? And they're doing a great job with their home program of progressing their impairment cleanup, or the impairments are gone, and now we have the big finish, right? How fit will you let us get you? Right? Have you made an argument to this patient throughout that while symptoms are important, Nothing is more important than fitness. And we don't just mean physical fitness. We mean lifestyle behavior fitness, right? I sure hope that you've been chipping away this whole time, right? And making arguments about why sleep quality is important and why not eating like nonsense is really important, right? And why getting fitter and stronger is really important. Why managing your stress is important, right? So hopefully you've been building those arguments. Because now we're there. Now they know they can self-manage. So they don't really need you in the traditional sense anymore. But we believe this is where they need you the most, right? Because this is where you build the armor, right? If you let the patient go every time their symptoms are relieved, but you don't build fitness, you don't create modifications for them that they can use when they do have little flare-ups, right? You don't send them out as fit as possible. You are sending them out more vulnerable than they need to be. So this is the point where we say, look, can we get a couple weeks out of you, right? To build the habit of loading, to show you how to manage your post-load soreness when we do get serious about really putting weight on you. How fit will you let me get you? Because we have so many ideas. Don't cut off our ability to help you just yet. The fitter we can get you, the more we cement these lifestyle behaviors, right? The further away from the symptomatic threshold you leave this place, and hopefully the longer from now you're going to ever need my help again, right? How much armor can we put on you? That's the $1 million question. And at this phase, manual therapy has become irrelevant. So now you went all the way to the other side where you're simply building human capacity. How far away from 1 rep max living can I get you? How good can I get you from a lifestyle behavior perspective, right? How much can we inoculate you against your next possible symptom recurrence? How fit will you let me get you, right? Manual therapy does not have a role in that space. Now we're just loading humans up. We're building better people. Good. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I love that question. So thanks for firing it in. Thanks for asking about it this weekend as well. I think order of operations matter, and good communication to the patient about why you're doing what you're doing. That's always clutch, right? Here's why we're doing some manual therapy. It's not because manual therapy solves your problem. It's because manual therapy puts you in a position where on any given day, you can beat back your problem with the greatest efficacy. And we're going to vary when and why we use that, and there's rationale behind it. Okay, sweet. Thank you all for being here. Very, very early morning on the West Coast. Thrilled to be with you. For those of you who I will see in Sioux Falls on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can't wait. Looking forward to the state conference. Everybody have a blast with Justin and the crew down in Baton Rouge. You know, I think if you want to jump into older adult, MMOA online, I think you can still grab a spot. I know it started today or yesterday, but I think you can still jump in today. I'm sure that will get pulled from the website by the end of the day. So if you want to jump into MMOA, this is probably your last chance to do so. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.